The average Venezuelan has lost 17 pounds. Oh, yes? 4,000% inflation. Yes. Brink on the Civil War.
Venezuela,
yes. Number one
the
oil
only
reserves in the world.
socialist
They don't have a
country on the
functioning
planet,
economy.
everybody.
Yes.
Larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live as a
Hey,
capitalist.
hey,
okay?
hey.
I live what I believe.
In this video, we are going to watch Charlie Kirk decimate Hasan Piker over and over again. And this one gets wild at the end when they go full on WWE, UFC, and a fight nearly breaks out with the audience. So stick around for that and let's get into the clips.
Currently, the economic system that we're living under is inherently exploitative, it's inherently oppressive, and we're now actually feeling the devastating impact of that more than ever. We live in a country where there are 40 million Americans. We live in the wealthiest nation that has ever existed, the wealthiest nation on the planet, and we have 40 million Americans living in poverty. We have 18.5 million Americans living in extreme poverty, according to the latest UN reports. Climate change is happening no matter how hard people try to deny its existence, and its outcomes are devastating, especially for millennials, and this is something that we need to focus on. And unfortunately, every single time we tried to bring about any sort of socialized solutions to these problems that the free market obviously fails to provide solutions for, we get called socialist, and that idea is inherently damaging. We live under an inherently oppressive capitalist dogma, and I'm here to talk about that because I think that at least questioning that and striving to find a better system is exactly what young people should be doing right now.
Just because someone gets rich does not mean someone gets poor. In order for you to get rich in a free market system, you must have a good idea. You must create value. You must employ people. You probably borrowed money. And you have an 80% chance of that business not succeeding. In a free market, yes, we applaud success, but you must take responsibility for failure. And you have seen in the last 100 years the standard of living increase for all people across the world. Things get better, prices go down, and we are able to enjoy the abundance that only a free market system can create. And you know what? I don't have to call you guys socialists. Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist, and we should reject socialism.
Yeah. It's very nice of you to immediately launch this accusation that I don't care for small businesses, or small businesses will never exist under a social democracy, kind of similar to small businesses in Nordic countries and with robust economies, but with also a powerful and protective social welfare programs and socialized safety nets. This exists everywhere around the world. All of the comparable Western democratic nations have been able to institute socialist principles, and that's precisely why their people are a lot happier. But then on top of that, what's really important to me is like focusing on the rate of growth and the GDP is great, but you can't answer this one simple question. Who cares what our GDP is if the person who is dying of abject poverty can't heal himself because we don't have a socialized medicine, for example?
So if you want to talk about healthcare solutions, happy to talk about it. You brought up Norway, Sweden, Finland. You would call those socialist countries?
No, I wouldn't call them socialist countries,
okay,
but they're definitely on a scale. Yeah, I said they're social democracies, which would be a more socialist country. Look, if we're going to have this conversation, let's frame it.
I asked a very simple question.
No, we'll have a consensus on this first. Let me ask you a question, okay? Because this is like really improper framing, and a lot of people confuse socialism.
You said inherently exploitative. You framed the argument.
With capitalism, yeah, I did.
Okay, so that's, and I rebutted that. So
how did you rebut that?
By talking about just because
by talking about like what, small businesses? It doesn't matter. Every single business
Hasan, let me say one thing. Norway,
business.
Sweden, and Finland, according to the World Economic Freedom Index, are ranked higher than the United States of America. That is not socialist. They have less tax. They have lower taxes.
So that means that you can have socialism and yet still have successful businesses in your country. Thank you for proving my point for me.
No,
I love this.
It's the exact opposite. You know what socialist is? Bernie Sanders wants an 80% tax rate on the rich.
Venezuela too, right? Dude, listen.
Bernie Sanders wants to keep our fossil fuel assets in the ground.
You want me to explain it to you? Because you obviously don't understand it. Do you want me to explain it to you?
Is Cuba not socialist? Is North Korea not socialist? Was Vietnam not socialist? Was Zimbabwe not socialist? You can laugh all you want, Hasan, but 100 million people died under socialism in the last 100 years, and you have the gumption to continue. You can keep laughing to the victims' families from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Korea, from Vietnam, from Mao's China, from Stalin's Russia. the #1 killer of citizens, from innocent civilians in the last 100 years, has been the very idea that you shamelessly wear on your sleeve every single day. Marxism has killed more people than any other ideology over the last 100 years.
Okay.
Holy smokes, Charlie came out the gates swinging there. And what do you say to that? It's just the facts of the matter. The world is littered with places that have been decimated by communism, where millions and millions of people have been killed. And worse yet, oftentimes in the name of social justice and equity. And you guys who watch the channel know that I like to travel to these places that have been affected by communism and do videos about them. And in the coming weeks, I'm actually releasing my first documentary length film about the genocide that occurred in Cambodia. I went to the killing fields and I went to the prison camps and I interviewed one of the last remaining survivors who's in his 90s now. And we spoke about all of the atrocities that occurred in Cambodia. Atrocities that most of the world doesn't even know about. And it's actually not even safe for YouTube, so I'll be uploading it to Rumble and Locals. But moreover, Charlie is spot on here about the Scandinavian countries. They're not socialist countries, and those people who try and hold them up as some beacon of socialism are just hilarious. But this is what the Western Marxists have done for 100 years. They used to do it with Stalin's Russia, and then Chairman Mao's China, and then they used to do it with North Korea, and then they used to do it with Cuba, and then they used to do it with Venezuela. All of these countries were amazing examples of socialism in the developing world until they weren't. And now they've resorted to turning to the Scandinavian countries as these shining beacons, and they're not even socialist. But we can play this game. Let's have a look at these Scandinavian countries and let's see if their policies align with the Western left. Because obviously, this is the liberal paradise that they're trying to create in the West, right? The only Scandinavian country that has a minimum wage is Finland. They negotiate wages with employees. You can hire and fire people as you please for any reason. They have low corporate taxes. They have no inheritance taxes. Norway is the only country in Scandinavia that has a wealth tax. They have less regulation than other countries in Europe and in America. Norway also has one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world. Why is this, you wonder? Well, because of oil and natural resources. They hate the Green New Deal, and in fact, they love oil and they love fracking more than they love Eurovision. And yes, they have generous social safety nets. But this is in some cases because they have so much money, and also because they have a high value added tax, or VAT, otherwise known as goods and service tax, which disproportionately affects the poor and middle class. Because obviously they spend a higher amount of their income on goods and services. Furthermore, they also have up to a 200% tax on cars, and that went down to 100 recently, but that's why they're always riding around bikes with baskets on the front like idiots. And lastly, they're also very culturally homogenous and traditional societies, and traditionally they're actually the hardest countries to get into. And Sweden changed this recently and let a whole bunch of immigrants in, and they are paying the price for that. So Hasan's "but Scandinavia brah" argument really doesn't resonate with me. And Denmark even told Bernie Sanders to stop calling them socialists. It doesn't make any logical sense to look at the idea of socialism and how that's gone down over the last 100 years and to say it's actually not that bad and there's nothing to be afraid of because Scandinavia has free childcare. Sorry, buddy, the evidence is not in your favor, but this argument about socialism versus capitalism is not done yet. Before we get to this next clip, guys, if you don't mind taking a second to quickly chuck a thumbs up on this video and leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel, and help out a brother with his algorithms, that would be greatly appreciated. Back into it.
When 100 million people die under a communist dictatorship, and some of those millions are also Nazis, which is included there, whatever, you blame communism.
National Socialist Workers Party.
Or you blame socialism. But when 7 million people die every year under our current global capitalist environment, where just by famine alone, before we even talk about imperialism, and before we even talk about the damaging wars that are happening all around the world, then it's the individual. So you're essentially telling every single person that's poor, it's your fault that you're poor, it's your fault that you die under a capitalist system, but if you were under a communist system...
I have never said that.
I mean, that's literally what you're saying.
No, it's not.
So whose fault is it? Whose fault is it that 7 million people every year die just by famine-related diseases and famine under our current global capitalist structure?
Whose individual fault is it?
Yeah. Why is it with the system when it comes to communism, but it's actually,
go from 40 years to 80 years in America for women and 76 years for women.
You're not answering my
Global
question.
poverty is at its all-time low than it ever has been.
But you're not
dropped below
answering.
10%.
You're not
as the
answering
free
my
enterprise.
question. You're not answering. You're talking about
There's
something
not a
completely
singular
different.
person why individuals might die, unfortunately. However, what's going to stop
Oh,
that?
it's unfortunate when they die.
Oh, yes,
okay.
yes, Hassan. Death is unfortunate.
Yeah,
Correct.
I know. I understand. But you
How
make
do you
it seem as
solve
though
these
they are
problems?
just a statistic.
So how do you solve that? So let's talk about healthcare in particular.
Okay.
Because a common critique of conservatives is that we do not have a plan for healthcare. It's quite simple. First of all, the idea that we do not have socialized medicine or a test case for it in the States is incorrect. The Veterans Administration.
If you say the veterans, oh God,
$180 billion a year
how
we
disgusting.
spend trying to help our
disgusting.
veterans. Hassan, let me finish. $180 billion a year we spend trying to help our veterans, and they wait in line, they die in the clinics, the quality care is unbelievably low. You cannot say that the Veterans Administration is a well-run government agency despite us spending $180 billion a year trying to help our vets. We have seen
disgusting
what's
that
disgusting?
you would send these young men and women overseas to go
Me?
fight not you. I'm talking about
against your-
conservatives
said
in
you.
general. Just conservatives in general don't mind sending these young men and women overseas to fight imperialist conquests that have nothing to do with protecting America or
I'm
protecting
against the Iraq
American
war.
sovereignty. Hold on, that's great. That's great. That's just one war, though. We're waging many currently. But then they come back, and the numbers have obviously increased. The number of casualties have increased. The treatment is drastically different than a regular pool of American citizens who aren't in the line of fire. How could you then turn around, not fund that system that we promised those veterans we would take care of them, not fund that system, and then use it as a talking point to say socialized medicine does not work? That is disgusting.
We should take care of our vets.
Disgusting.
You know what's disgusting, Hassan? The fact that you defend that system. The fact that vets die waiting for care. Our vets are our heroes. First of all, I'm against the Afghanistan war, against the Iraq war, against our funding of Saudi Arabia's illegal war in Yemen. I'm against the missile strikes in Syria. So don't try to paint me in the same blend and the same brush that all neoconservatives are. Second of all, ironically, Donald Trump is making the world a safer place. The Korean War is ending thanks to Donald Trump. ISIS is on the run and being destroyed.
What does this have to do with us lying to our veterans that we were going to take care of them and then letting them be homeless on the streets,
which is socialized medicine, the Veterans Administration, which is socialized medicine, does a disservice. You advocate for socialized medicine. I do not want the rest of the country.
I'm not saying
to
the
be
VA is good.
to
I'm
the
saying
same
that it's
level of care
underfunded.
That our veterans have to
You're
go to.
using that as a tool to just attack socialism,
No, a
attack
piece of
socialized
evidence.
medicine.
It's
When
called evidence,
This works
Hassan.
in every other country that has tried to do this. This works. This system absolutely
Cuba?
works.
How does the Cuban healthcare system work?
The Cuban healthcare
system.
The Cuban healthcare system? Oh, you mean the country where they're on the verge of solving AIDS and a multitude of different cancer research? Like, what are you talking about?
Where their life expectancy is 15 years, less than the United States, where they have widespread starvation, where they lock up political dissidents. Why do people flee Havana, Cuba for Miami, Florida?
I don't know.
They
Maybe
don't
our
flee
sanctions
Miami,
have
Florida
something to do with
for
it?
Havana, Cuba.
So I don't know enough about this Veterans Administration to have an opinion, and my American friends can let me know in the comments about that. But on the debating side, Hassan so regularly goes for the appeals to emotion and the ad hominem attacks, which are obviously logical fallacies and get you nowhere in a debate. And this to me is the weakest points for Hassan. I mean, his ideas themselves actually make no sense when you just peel back the layers a little bit, because they're essentially just Marxist ideas and it's never worked anywhere ever. But his rhetoric is just so whiny and emotional. And every time he gets upset about something, his voice goes up about 8 octaves.
Socialized medicine does not work. That is disgusting.
And he tries so hard to be so hip and cool. But on the other side, I think Charlie actually could have handled this a lot better himself. That if Charlie were to stay nice and calm, show a stoic temperance, and just focus on being very sharp and compendious, the contrast would have been day and night. You can see that Hassan was actually trying to get a reaction from Charlie here. And interestingly enough, when he does get that reaction, you see him briefly laugh and then like wipe the smile off his face. That's because Charlie took the bait. But Charlie's very strong from here on in.
This is the kind of deregulation that already caused the 2008 housing market crash.
I'm not going to get into
you're not going to
Fannie
get
and
into
Freddie
the
rating
when I know
agencies,
what the fuck
Federal
you're talking
Reserve,
about?
Federal Reserve lowering,
whatever,
Federal Reserve
dude.
lowering interest rates. Hold on, what's Fannie and Freddie, genius? this. What's Fannie and Freddie? Tell me what that is. Tell me about the rating agencies. Tell me about how we should have allowed Wells Fargo to pay a price, and those people should be in prison right now for doing what they did.
I agree.
And lying to federal regulators.
Charlie
and it was,
sounds like
and it was
a
Democrat Congress and a Democrat Senate and a Democrat president.
Advocating to jail bankers, I'm on board, dog. Let's do it right now.
Talking over each other for the next 45 minutes, or you can let me finish. The final thing I'll say on banking regulation, one of the biggest misrepresentations of reality is somehow that free market capitalism contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. It was the rating agencies in bed with Fannie and Freddie Mac doing AAA bond rating with B and B- rated bonds. No one looked what they were actually rating. It was the government institutions that were telling Wall Street to continue to go after subprime mortgage lending, where they did credit default swaps on top of it, leveraging the entire American economy, with Alan Greenspan artificially lowering interest rates after 9/11, playing with cheap money. Pair that with the Community Reinvestment Act, and no one actually knowing what they're trading.
I don't like liberals
all
either, dog.
certified
We're on the same page.
by Washington.
We're on the same page, but you sound a lot like a communist when you make those points. I'm just going to let you know. When you're like, let's jail bankers, let's regulate both our politicians and also these corporations. You can't just sit here and say that it's deregulation.
Hassan,
you keep mentioning the failures of capitalism, and then your solution to the failures of capitalism is more capitalism, more free market.
Failure of statism. Well, you know how about the failure? How about the successes of free market capitalism? The fact that we have abundance in light, air conditioning. The fact that we have more food that we throw away every single year than we actually eat. The fact that in the Western world...
You think that's a good thing? You think that our waste is a good thing, dude?
We have an abundance problem in the West, not a scarcity problem.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, the average Venezuelan has lost 17 pounds. Oh, yes? 4,000% inflation. Yes. Brink on the Civil War.
Venezuela,
the
only socialist
country
on the planet, everybody.
Yes. The fact they have 42% unemployment. Yes. The fact that Maduro continues to exploit his citizens around the lies of Karl Marx. Yes. Is that what we're talking about, Hassan?
Yes. I love that you think you owned... Oh, my God. So ridiculous, dude. At this point, you guys all have to be aware that this is a ridiculous notion, right? There are plenty of socialized countries around the planet. It's not just Venezuela. And also, let me tell you another thing, okay? When Nordic countries want to implement social democracies or socially democratic principles, it doesn't matter because the United States can't impose sanctions on them, and the United States can't go and bomb them. The United States can't implement coups in their countries, and look at that. It freaking works, dude. It works. Maybe we should stop meddling in foreign affairs all around the world and allow these countries to do whatever they want. Because you can virtue signal as much as you want.
I generally agree with a non-interventionalist.
You can talk about virtue signaling. Here's what's virtue signaling. Acting like you care about Venezuela. Acting like you care about the interest of Venezuela.
I do care about Venezuela.
Yeah, if you did, you wouldn't be in support of an administration that is trying to put sanctions on Venezuela, a country that is already crippled. Like, it's a corrupt government. I'm sure there's an authoritarian element to it. I'm not the biggest fan of Maduro either. But you can't sit here and be like, oh, Venezuela, just to talk about socialism when your fellow men and women, your fellow brothers and sisters are dying in this country, and you want to stop socialized medicine from happening here. All right.
So you're drawing a connection with empathy and with my policy prescription to help people. And I would say
because the free market principles have never worked in socialized medicine. Obviously, that's the reason why we're here. Like, that's the reason why. That's the reason why it's 4 times.
Can you explain to me though that why people did everything they could to flee East Germany to go to West Germany? People flee Havana, Cuba for Miami, Florida, or they flee Venezuela for a free market system.
Why are they coming to America? Every immigrant's like, I'm coming to America for the free market system. Maybe the ones that you found. Like, what are you
they're
talking
also
about?
fleeing.
They're leaving violence
the communist
that we
dictatorships.
They're leaving violence that we largely were responsible for, like the Honduran caravan, for example.
Let me ask you a question.
Who is implementing coups in these countries, Charlie? Who is funding right-wing paramilitary groups just because they're capitalist and they love the free market?
So tell me, since that's your general thesis, that the reason communism and socialism hasn't worked because of U.S. intervention, what U.S. intervention in Zimbabwe, or what U.S. intervention... So the distinction between South Korea...
It's not the only reason. I'm not a dummy. I don't think there's a singular reason for an entire country to absolutely fail. Like, it's ridiculous
let me ask
to
you a question,
that it's because
South Korea
you're the only one who's saying
today
that.
because of U.S. intervention. North Korea lives in darkness.
It's not just because of U.S. intervention, Charlie. There are a multitude of reasons, obviously.
The fact that socialism is evil, it doesn't work, it has proper incentives.
All of your reasons are just socialism is bad. Like, you're literally like, no, it's socialism.
No, and also that free market capitalism is the most proven immoral and effective economic system ever discovered.
it's ridiculous.
That's lifted more people out of poverty. That Western civilization is one of the greatest experiments in human history. That the life expectancy has gone nearly double in the last 100 years.
You do realize
that
you keep
global
repeating
poverty
your same talking points, right?
Well,
like I understand that technological
it doesn't mean it's any less true
advancements
just
are
because I repeat it.
inevitable.
Repetition is the soul of memory, and I hope you can remember some of this stuff so you can stop being a Marxist.
Yes.
Absolutely devastating skills from Charlie there, and he's one of the best at this when he gets on a roll. So Hasan's theory here is very much the Noam Chomsky blame America for everything type theory, and there is a little bit of merit to that considering that America has had some very questionable foreign policy over the years. But many of these countries are absolutely rife with political corruption, America or no America, and they are their own worst enemies. Their politicians will get billions of dollars in foreign aid from other countries and then just pocket it all and enrich themselves. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know. And they will happily kick the can down the road and get their countries in all sorts of debt, just so that they can enrich themselves and hold on to power. And the United States and other Western countries have actually led the way in creating prosperity in the world and creating freedom in the world. And without the American experiment, then many of the amazing luxuries that we have today, we would not have, including your ability to be able to stream, Hasan. Moreover, Charlie mentioned North Korea and South Korea, and it's just the perfect example. Another country that I went to and did a video about. But after the Korean Peninsula War, when the Japanese were defeated and had to hand over control of Korea, the United States took control of the South and started building a market economy, and the Soviets took control of the North and started building a Soviet-style socialist economy. Today, North Korea is languishing in desperate poverty and extreme political corruption and totalitarianism, whereas South Korea is a rapidly developing and thriving economy. And all of the fastest growing economies in the world, i.e. China, India, and many African nations now, have been able to do so because they've instituted free market principles. There are literally 0 countries that make the same progress by instituting Marxist policies. They literally all fail and normally turn genocidal. But I'm sure that if Hasan had his way, then the socialist utopia would be brought about. But Charlie is about to put the nails of logic in the coffin and show that Hasan's arguments just don't stand up. They're too weak.
Like people always come up to me and tell me, hey Hasan, why do you want to take away my earnings? And I told them, I'm not trying to take away your earnings. I'm trying to make sure your bosses give back what is rightfully yours. These are your earnings. You work for them, okay? And it is very obvious that corporations are not magnanimously going to, anytime soon, give you back those wages, so we have to implement regulation. We have to implement certain policies. This could be UBI. I don't really like it that much, but this could potentially be taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Like, there are many different ways to do it. Or this could be regulating the wages in some way. Or allowing unions to exist in countries. I can't believe you're booing this, man.
Here's the big philosophical difference and problem, is that Hasan says, well, I don't want to take your worker earnings away. I want to go after your employer, essentially to make sure. I don't have the right to tell anybody what to do with any of their money. That's the big difference, Hasan, is that you're trying to
It's their money, Charlie. It's the workers' money. They are just taking away and accumulating the profits for themselves. I'm not, and by the way, I'm not even saying abolish all profit.
This is a distinctly Marxist argument, by the way.
Just because it's Marxist doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Stop being an idiot, dude. God damn it. Like.
Oh, okay, so I'm so glad you mentioned that. So.
It's so silly, like as if we implement socialized medicine, we're going to eat rats like Venezuela.
I didn't say it was bad. I said it was Marxist, and now I'm going to tell you why it's bad.
Oh, okay.
The problem with the Marxist argument is the incentive structure. In a free market system, incentives, everybody is incentive to create value, get a job, or take a risk and employ people. Under a Marxist socialist system, you're incentivized to either run for political office, get as much power as you possibly can, to try to extract money away from people that don't have it.
What about cooperatives? Like, I don't understand. There's multiple different ways to do this.
Then do that voluntarily. Go do what the Amish do. Go live in northern New York. In America, we have people that live in cooperatives today. Don't tell me how to live my life. You can live your life however you want to.
It's just, look,
the big difference and distinction is that it's impossible to live as a capitalist in a socialist country. You can live as a socialist in a capitalist country.
It's impossible to have capitalism without socialism. You could never.
How's that?
You could never implement capitalism without public roads, without the infrastructure necessary to bring private industry. What the hell are you talking about? You
okay,
can live in a socialist country. It won't be great.
So,
if it's a fully socialist country, I don't think we've been able to figure that out yet. So I'm not even saying that a fully socialist country will be great. But you have never, ever lived in a fully capitalist country.
You pay tolls? You pay tolls?
So that's it. They're
that's a
financing.
user fee. That's not socialism.
Oh,
that's if you use the highway, you pay for the highway.
Highways are
you
not
pay a gas tax.
socialized. Okay,
you pay a gas
you're right.
tax. So
Yeah.
if you drive a car, you pay into the highway fund.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
how it works, Hasan.
You're right.
You know,
Socialism is just what you want it to be,
I'm gonna
and
put
not
a
what
gun
it
to your
actually
head
is. You're
and
right.
fund
Never
a
mind.
program that will not benefit you to send the money to someone else that is in a different socioeconomic circumstance.
Here's
Free
the
market
thing.
capitalism is the greatest wealth-creating engine in human history. It's lifted more people out of poverty, and you are a beneficiary of the very system that you are bashing right now.
No, because it's
Your
not
life
free
is
market
better.
capitalism. It's so stupid. When the last time we had free market capitalism or something close to it was leading up to the Great Depression, okay? There's no such thing as like we have a fully free market. Where is the fully free market? If you like a decentralized government, why don't you go live in Somalia? There's decentralized government there, all you want.
Well, so we are more capitalist than we are socialist right now.
Uh-huh.
And everywhere the free market...
Oh, so you admit that capitalism and socialism coexist.
So we have
Thank you for proving my earlier point, even though
Hasan,
you were like,
yes,
it's Marxism.
we have some So yes, we have broken public schools, which you would attribute to socialist policies. We spend money that we don't have.
I said that we need to spend
Government
more
is far
on
too
them.
big, far too powerful, far too controlling over our lives.
Dude,
we have a
stop trying to
$4.4 trillion
fearmonger over
budget every single
so
year.
Weird. It's an idea. It's an ideology. You
We
can't
have,
like make
we have
it seem
3
so-
million people that work for the federal government. All of these are pseudo-socialist ideas, of which I categorically disagree with.
Funnily enough, Charlie just pulled the same trick on Hasan that Hasan pulled on him before. And oftentimes in these debates, these guys will say certain things and do certain things to get under the other person's skin. And when they do so and they get the emotional reaction, it's a win. And look at this, just as Hasan did before, when Charlie gets that emotional reaction, he sits back and laughs about it. But moreover, once again, Charlie is spot on here. Hasan is just saying the Marxist argument that all of the profits of a company actually belong to the workers, which is just hilarious and shows his hypocrisy on absolute steroids. This guy has a multi-million-dollar home and he has an extremely successful business which he profits off enormously. He no doubt has people working with him to manage all the content, do all the edits, create all of the thumbnails and the rest. So I wonder if he evenly spreads all of the profit amongst them. I highly doubt it, and so he shouldn't, because Hasan has created all of these resources for himself, and he deserves every bit of his success, because in the free market, your skills will determine your outcome. If there is a need for what you are doing, then the market will respond accordingly. That's why you, Hasan, get millions for streaming, and the guys down the bottom don't get paid. Care to do a bit of redistributing there? No, I doubt it, because it wouldn't make any sense. And that is the beauty of capitalism. You are a young, successful, walking, talking billboard for capitalism that preaches Marxism. But I guess it keeps the dollars rolling in, so fair play to you. Isn't it funny that he claims the Scandinavian type of countries are my kind of socialism, dude, and it's nothing to be scared of, dog? And then you turn your back for 1 second and boom, he goes full Chairman Mao Marxist on you. But Charlie's argument is that the incentive structures in a Marxist system incentivizes individuals to run for political office and gain as much power as possible, to extract more money from the people. This is just the truth, and these Marxist countries actually embody this structure. High-ranking government officials get extremely high salaries, and they make all of the rules, which they obviously make to benefit themselves and their friends, whilst the bottom 99% are pretty much screwed. This is how it works in North Korea, for example. All of the higher ranking members of society live in the capital, in Pyongyang. And the highest ranking of all these people are obviously the government officials, whilst the peasants are all in the countryside. And anybody who goes against the party lines will have them and their whole family sent to the countryside as punishment. All of these high-ranking officials live in luxury and embezzle all of the money and live like kings whilst the rest of the country starves. And there is no social or economic mobility available for the poor. They don't have the opportunity to start a business and climb their way to the top and then leave an inheritance for their family and create generational wealth. That's not how it works. Everything goes through the government. And when the government does this, nationalizes industry and other Marxist policies, then that is authoritarianism 101. They now have control over all of the resources and all of the money. Do you really think they're going to do anything else but enrich themselves with it? That is human nature. That is what people have been doing throughout history. And that is what has happened every single time Marxism has been implemented over the last 100 years. Now let's watch World War III erupt when leader of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, says something from the crowd that really pisses Charlie off.
So you want to privatize the school system entirely?
Okay, localize the school
answer
system.
my question.
Eliminate
Answer
the
my
Department
question.
of Education. Send the money
Don't
back
run away.
to the states.
Do you want to
allow a
privatize
voucher
the school system?
Right, one at a time.
By the way, what does Foster Friess think about all that? I would like to know his perspective because obviously his perspective is more important.
So if you're just so you said no, he's trying to attack my investors and donors, of which I'm happy to talk about. We have 35,000 donors spanned in all 50 states. We now have a $15 million budget. And we are supported by some of the most successful people in the American business community.
He means
that
wealthy
created
billionaires
over
who have
50 million
stolen
jobs,
your money
that created
and your
wealth
wages.
for everyone. Oh, really? So when we get investments from people that, for example, helped create the modern internet as we know it,
we have socialism,
so like affirmative action
but
policies.
We
you'd
only
be in
have
support of affirmative
socialism
action.
for the wealthy, and we have some socialism for the very poor.
Okay,
what we need to do is bring that back and have socialism for everyone. For example, Medicare for all would be a good place to start.
Oh, okay. So
There is no answer you can give me to what will happen when automation wipes out the labor force with artificial intelligence. Socialism, whether you like it or not, some variation of that already exists in our country, but some variation of that that will make you deeply uncomfortable will inevitably happen. So it's really silly. You can yell about the free market and how great it is, and also the free market's great because my dad is wealthy is not an argument that you can make anymore, okay? There are people that are suffering in this country.
So Hasan, why don't you give 95% of your money away and go live on a commune?
Do you really think that that's how it works? Do you really think
Why
that's
not?
how it works?
Go live what you preach. Because every single
this is as silly.
You talk uninterrupted for 5 minutes. Hasan, let me finish.
Go ahead. Sorry, you're right.
I live what I practice.
Make
I'm
your
a free market capitalist. I
point.
employ people. I took a risk. I have my own startup business. Every single day, I practice what I preach. He wants other people to contribute to what he considers to be a good idea, what he considers will make the world a better place. You have the freedom to go live as a socialist. Go do it, Hasan. What's stopping you?
Okay.
All right.
So here's why this is ridiculous.
This is the last.
If I gave away the measly earnings that I had and gave away 95% of that,
How much do you make,
that
Hasan?
wouldn't necessarily even push the needle. I will be very honest. It's really embarrassing, especially because my boss is sitting right there. I make $60,000 a year, okay? And that's a really good salary, but it's not like what Ted Cruz's wife was talking about the other day when she said $174,000 salary a year. It's not like we're going to buy a second home anytime soon, but that's besides the point, okay? You're trying to attack me, which is ridiculous, like asking me what my salary is. Sure, I'll reveal it willingly.
You brought it up in context. I'm asking,
no,
why don't you live like a socialist?
Okay.
Go live like a socialist.
The point is larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk.
guys.
I live as a capitalist,
hey, hey.
I live what I believe.
No.
What do? I get charity every single year.
Hold on.
What's my salary?
Charlie.
Less than his.
Charlie, take a
Come on,
seat.
Cenk, let's go.
Charlie,
What are you doing?
Take a seat.
Come
Take
on,
a seat.
psycho.
All right, no. Take a seat. You're gonna take a seat. You're gonna take a seat over here.
Oh my God.
What's my salary?
All right.
Ridiculous. All right, behave, everyone. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
I practice what I preach, Cenk.
Charlie.
You do
Stop.
not practice what you preach.
Charlie.
All right, hold on. Last point.
You don't want to give him the attention here.
Everyone,
35,000 donors across the country, my
Last
friend
point. Last point.
We are funded by the grassroots of this country. You can try to demagogue it all you want.
Okay. Can I finish my point?
All right.
Less than Hasan, so you
Hold
can check it yourself.
on.
Charlie.
Let me finish my point. All
right.
Right? We're having a reasonable discussion, right? We're here, we're talking to one another. Let's stop screaming at one another, including those of the Young Turks who obviously don't pay me enough. So,
That is why I love American politics so much. They take debates seriously. They treat it like a sport. They absolutely love it. And you don't get this level of absurd passion in Australia. Like it's a world heavyweight title boxing match. Not even anything close for that matter. But I wish we did, because maybe then we'd get some more interesting people running for office. But who knows, guys? Maybe one day I'll return to the motherland, run for office, and save Australia from the impending tyranny. But obviously, what we just saw for entertainment's sake was fantastic, and the crowd absolutely ate it up. But surprisingly, Hasan was the only one with any composure in this situation, and the only one that understood that this is just a debate and everything's cool and everyone needs to chill. So credit to Hasan for that, even though I am kind of glad it happened. And also credit to him for having the debate, even though he doesn't make any logical sense, because most of these Marxists, especially the professors in the university, will never ever step in the arena of ideas. And anybody who steps in there, I've got respect for. So with that, guys, if you want to watch another video, click right here. Until next time, I'm Jake. This is Rattlesnake TV, keeping you armed and dangerous.